Okay, so hello everyone. I am really glad that we can hear each other today. And today we are going to end a part about identity. And well, as far as I know, Nicole is having a presentation today. So not to prolong it, Nicole, is your turn. So please, could you share presentation with us? Thank you so much. Nicole, can you share the screen or something? Or at least can you hear me? Is the first question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, right now, yes.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I can.
Down you have something like share and yeah. Okay, yeah, it worked. Yeah. Okay, it works. So thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to check real quick. Sorry, if can you see the slides moving? Is the slide moving or it's not moving?
No, it's not moving. I mean, I
No,
can
it's
only
not.
see Afro-Panama. Sorry.
Panamanianity. No worries,
Thank
because
you
I
so
do
much.
have an issue with say Panamanianity. It's kind of like, yeah, it's fine. All right, can you see it now? Is it moving?
Yeah, yeah.
All
Yes,
right.
now it is.
Okay, let me see. Sorry, hi, sorry. Okay, so hello. My name is Nicole Peña. I am part of the it's called Red de Jóvenes Afro-Panameños, which is a nonprofit organization of young Afro-Panamanians that look into moving through social, political, and movement of Afro-Panamanian youth through our country. Um, and today I would like to do a presentation about what is Afro-Panamanian. um, and all right. So what is an Afro-Panamanian identity? That's a question. I'm just putting the question out there and just, hopefully we will have an idea after this presentation that you will be able to, respond that question. And we will be responding that question through this presentation. Um, and I would say that an Afro-Panamanian identity, as we are going to see, is not just one thing. It was just not a composure of one thing. So we're gonna answer that. Um, and I would like to start with a very important percentage of currently of our Afro-Panamanian population is now currently is 31.7% on our recent census. And the community of Afro-Panamanian is characterized by different cultures, diversity and different belief, in which enclose that in our history that would enclose or that identity of what is being Afro-descendant in our country. And I have included a few pictures of some Afro-descendants that have been, not all of them, there have been many, but some Afro-descendants that have been important through our history. So let's start the answering the question of what is an Afro-Panamanian identity. And I would like to divide this as like waves of different times during our time in the Panamanian history. And the first wave that I would like to talk about is Afro-colonials. And Afro-colonials are, through the transatlantic slave trade, that was, as we know, is that was a trading system that took place several centuries ago, and that was a forced transportation of millions of Africans, mainly from to North America, Central America, and South America. Um, this wave that was like, at least for this century, was mainly from different parts from Africa, and our in this case by the Spanish crown. So that's what we in the like Afro, that's where the term of Afro colonials will come, because the Spaniards, or the Spanish crown at the time, was the one that was colonizing Panama. So that's why that also the term of where this Afro descendants will be in this way, Afro colonials. Something that to take in consideration, and that's why I wanted to put in the idea that I mentioned, and currently in this time in Panama, we're talking about 31.7% of Afro descendants. Back in that time, there was like around the 16th centuries in Panama, there was more than 70% of the population of the, that we'll call it like Audiencia de Panama. It was of African origin. Okay, so that we're talking about just looking at the difference in the time, what happened, right? So something to talk about that I think that is very important. Um, it's about the population that came during this time, during this period of conquest to our isthmus, that mostly was brought for the exploitations of marine resources, such as the pearl fishery and the construction and operations of the Transmanian roads, that were particular for the hands of Black Afro descendants. And a phenomenon that took place not only in Panama, but in different parts of where enslaved people were brought. Um, it's called, in Panama particularly, it's called cimarronaje or cimarronesh. And this movement was obviously was came about because of the mistreatment of people that were enslaved and that were brought against their will. And they, aspire for aspiration of freedom, and obviously right, and escaping, and this resistance. Again, this was not just a particular movement in Panama, but it happened in Panama, and it happened in different parts of the Caribbean. And this the enslaved people that will escape to parts of the jungle, and they will create these communities that will be called palenques. Mind you, we talking about Afro descendants, from Africans that were brought to this territory, and we talking about Africans that were coming from different parts of Africa, different countries, different tribes, different beliefs, all of them coming together to create to resist. All of them coming with different ideas, different perspective, engineerings in their own time. Again, believe in their own time. Anybody that had like a specific set of skills from different tribe or country coming together to build this, and organize themselves in these palenques. And it's important to note about this in Panama, and again bring this into history, because it's not like they were here and they just stay here and they just obey the law what was set for them. No, this people that fought, that created that resistance. And some names that come about that are also part of names of the territories in Panama now. You have the voices of Bayano, that in his community he was deemed as king of Bayano, and the Spaniards had a hard time dealing with Bayano. Also, we have the name of Felipillo that comes to mind, and many others that fought against the Spanish crown. And these Maroon leaders organized themselves through the history and centuries of Panama. Unfortunately, again, unfortunately for some of them, it was the Spaniards had to find strategies to be able to, fight against them, because they did organize very well military wise for several years. So it was again the names of this different um, maroon fighters are through also distributed through our um, country as well. So as we can see a little bit, and I know it's a little too hard in the map. So I just wanted to talk about Cimarrones and why it's important in to talk about in Panama, and that also part of our identity. That adds on what is being Afro-Panamanian. Something else to talk about is the caste system. Um, it's the social division that was functional for the power of the Spanish crown. And that was presented as the natural order of seeking and maintaining domination over the majority of the population. Um, and again, I'm talking about like if you were colonized by the Spaniards, in different parts of the countries or territories where the Spaniards were colonizers, this system that was implemented was affected. It's a caste system that affected mostly indigenous and blacks and the black population in the country. And even if it was in the Spanish crown time, and obviously we evolved from this caste system, the idea of this caste system, I will say, currently present in Panama, I will call it as an invisible caste system. That is not something that you will visually will like you it's something that you will not necessarily will see, but if you're paying attention, you will see it. It's not something that's come to the, like, again, easily to the eye, but if you're paying attention, you will see the reverberation of this caste system that was implemented several centuries ago in Panama. Again, uh, for that will affect our indigenous and African population to this day. So that talking about that first wave, just to give an idea, and I also want to say that our Afro Panamanian identity and our Afro descendant history, it's really complex. So condensing this information, it's really, there's definitely a lot of information that goes beyond just this. So just to give a little bit of that of the idea of that. And then in this second wave, that's also important to talk about is now, listen, we're talking about a different identity. We're talking about Afro colonials that were coming and were brought, Afro descendants, Afro African enslaved that were brought by the Spaniards. Now we're going to talk about Afro Antillians. And this is a different wave. Same African descendants, but a different wave that came to Panama to a specific time in our history. So in this second wave, we will start first with the railroad constructions. And available historical documents agree that for this migration of African Antillians to the Isthmus of Panama for the construction of the railroad was between 1850 and 1855. The majority of the people that were coming specifically for the construction of the railroad were Jamaicans. They were coming from other territories of the Caribbean, but the majority for this wave that we will talk about of the railroad construction were Jamaicans. And now we talk, it's still within that second wave. We will put it there because it's also part of the, like a time of the history that including that second wave that is also important to talk about. It's the United Fruit Company. And like in the 1880s, the cultivation of banana in Central America was expanded, and the United Fruit Company, and it's also another company called the Cherokee Land Company. They were established in this specific part of Bocas del Toro, that is the territory of Panama. and they became the protagonists also of that wave of Antillean immigrants coming for labor that were required for the banana crops. So again, you talking about Afro-Caribbeans coming from Jamaica, coming from Barbados, coming from Trinidad and Tobago, coming from Martinique, coming from different countries, speak different language, different belief. Again, take all of this different cultures, and so in consideration for all this wave that I'm talking about. And again, we're gonna continue in this second wave that we talk about our Afro-Antillean descendants. And in this, I would say like it's a third wave because of the history, but still because of the time in the history. So now we're talking about the construction of the Panama Canal by the French. And for the construction for the Panama Canal by the French, that was during the 1870s and the 1880s. Um, Another wave of Afro-Antillean immigrants that arrived to the Isthmus due to the demands of workers for the French Canal project, and for the French Canal, many Antilleans now were coming from Barbados, Saint Lucia, Martinique, again Jamaica. A big part was coming from Jamaica. Mind you, for the construction of the canal for by the French, it was a failed project in 1889. 13,000 workers were stranded in Panama by that time. Project failed. What happened to these workers? These workers just stranded in Panama. You know, they stay here. Uh, Included in that wave, that third wave to talk about. Now we're talking about, I don't know if you know if y'all will be familiar with the Panama Canal. And now we're talking about the construction of the Panama Canal by the United States. So this started in 1904, and the construction of the Panama Canal was taken by the U.S. And due to the failure of the French Canal, again resulting in the migration of Afro-Antillean. And I just want to clarify that I'm speaking specifically of Afro-Antillean descendants, and in this terms of the Afro descendant history or Afro-Panamanian identity in Panama. I just want to clarify that Afro-Antilleans were not the only migrants that were coming to work for the canal. There was from different other ethnicities. They were coming from China. They were coming from India. They were coming from different countries as well. But there was a majority of workers coming from the Antilleans. Mind you, remember I was talking about all of the other workers that was here already, and that they have been coming through the different waves. So you have more people coming as well from the Caribbean. And something particular that to talk about, and it's not to say that the Afro-Antilleans workers didn't that through the time that they were here for the construction of the railroad for the for the bananeras crops, or they were coming for the French Canal, that did not mean that they did not suffer any type of racism, policies against them, discrimination, but particularly for the US specifically, there were rules and laws implemented against the Afro-Antilleans and also Afro-colonials that was already here in Panama. The Afro-colonials that mainly speak Spanish, and the Afro-Antilleans that will be speaking English or French or any other form of Creole language. And during and after the construction of the American Canal, administrators established a system of racial distinction that was developed into more complex form of as the years went by. And it started in 1904 when they adopted the gold and silver road policies. This was a system of racial segregation that was implemented to keep blacks from whites separated in labors. It will affect service. It will affect salaries. It will affect the occupation of housing. It will affect education. So, if you're not familiar with U.S. history and currently how parts even also of the U.S. that also reverberate from that history of segregation, even if we're talking about Panama being a territory of its own, U.S. took over of this specific territories that the Panama Canal was on. This was U.S. land. They implemented this law in another country. And it's again things that even if it was implemented by the U.S. will also reverberate in our policies as Panamanian, as Afro-Panamanians in our politics. So, and it did not matter if you were an Afro-colonial Panamanian Spanish speaker, this will affect you as well. And it will affect families, it will affect dynamics, it will affect culture as well. And specifically for in terms of like the politics and for Afro-Antillians in Panama. In Panama, there was a law. It was called Law 13 from 1926, and a law in 26 for Afro-Antillians that were prevented from entering the country and were forced to speak Spanish and to be able to obtain civilization of to be able to obtain civilization to Afro-Antillians. It was finally achieved until 1946 that Afro-Antillians, we talking about all of the Afro-Antillians that were here in Panama through this wave. It was 1946 that some of this Afro-Antillians were able to obtain citizenship in a country that they have been living, working, their children being born here for that time. Again, all of these things that will, one way or another, affect culture, society, politics, for in that added for that Afro-Panamanian identity that is important to talk about. This is history that affected families as well. So that given just a little bit, again, this is more in depth history that we can talk about, and that is information out there. But just to give you like, I feel like it was very important to talk about this part of our history as Afro descendants, Afro-Panamanians to know about. And now we're gonna talk about the Afro-Panamanian culture and obviously how the Afro-colonial and Afro-Antillian culture will come together and develop in music and dance. As in, for example, we have the Congo that is also coming from that Afro-colonial part. That it was a dance against the enslaved master, that Spanish master, that have a lot of similarities to different dances from the Caribbean and also from different parts of African countries. We have also what we call Saracunde. We have Palo de Mayo. That also this different dances also come from different parts of the territory of Panama as well. So that's also important to talk about. And when we talk about the music in Panama, we can talk about calypso. That calypso coming from Trinidad, coming from Barbados, and how we have actually, matter of fact, yesterday was actually calypso and calypsonian day in Panama, and how this was also part of our history because we have Afro-Antillians, and you have calypso being sung here in Panama. And we have famous calypsonian artists as well. And then we have Spanish reggae. This is also a genre to talk about. I have like a picture of Nando Boom, which is also one of pioneer of Spanish reggae. And Spanish reggae coming from a mix of calypso, coming from a mix of Jamaican reggae and other forms of different music that was coming from the Caribbean. And something to talk about that is, important to know about that. If you are familiar with reggaeton, there wouldn't be no reggaeton if there was no Spanish reggae. Obviously, there would not be no Spanish reggae if there was no reggae from Jamaica. But our Spanish reggae, again, it's a mix also of calypso, of other forms as well of the Caribbean, not mainly, yes, reggae from Jamaica, but also a mix from other things. In Panama, there was a time that a lot of the communities, and the Afro-Antillian communities in the specific part that they were living, they would gather together and just start singing, and that exchange, all of that came about to also be part of a Spanish reggae as well. And I would say, specifically with Spanish reggae, you will, through the history, because in our genre, through our history, depending of the time that you're listening to the music, you also see the history and an evolution of Panama. So the Spanish reggae is also an interesting genre to see about our history of Afro-Panamanian and Afro-descendant and Afro-Antillean descendants. I just wanted to play just to have an idea and show you the map in the territory of Panama, where you will see mainly where is then dance Congo, and specifically for Congo, in this case, I'm just gonna play it real quick. And as you see in the map, it's in Colón, but it's also predominantly Afro descendants communities in Panama. It will be also in Colón. It will not be the only one because we are through the territory, but just to give you an idea. And I'm just gonna play real quick so that you can see what is the Congo dance. And that's
I'm sorry, does it have music or not? Because we
yes!
can't
Oh my
hear.
God! You couldn't hear it?
No, no, we
Oh,
only can see the images, you know.
so sorry. I thought you could hear it. Oh, okay.
I
Um,
think that maybe sharing the sound is something different than sharing a screen.
right.
I will
Okay.
take a look if it's possible, but I'm afraid
I think,
that I cannot help you
yeah,
right
it's a
now.
problem in general, you know,
Oh,
to share the sound, I think.
all right. No problem. So, well, you were able to see it, but the songs that they were singing about, also the music, and specifically the drums and the music that they were singing about. Sometimes it's a sing against it's a saying. You specifically with Congo, it's an Afro-colonial culture from Panama. And the music genre and dance concentrate mainly in the, as I mentioned, in the province of Panama Colón, and the Congo represents the African in the fight for the freedom to live and enjoy. By dancing, singing about history, it seeks to laugh and enjoy despite the suffering. And it's also considered the oldest drum genre and dance in the Isthmus of Panama. UNESCO has considered it an intangible cultural heritage of humanity since 2018. It's, Congo was also used to trans send messages from one community to another, like we'll say from one palenque to another, through the sayings. It was again making fun of the slave masters, and so to this day, this dance is being dance, and now different parts of the country also dance. The same, it will, but the video you will not be able to hear it, but we have another dance that's also bunde and merengue, and specifically,
Sorry, Nicole,
um,
but we can hear right now the
you can hear
sound,
it.
and I think, yeah,
That's
but
so.
it's not clear. It shouldn't, I
Okay.
think at least, it shouldn't be like
Uh,
this.
It's
I'm
kind
so
of
sorry.
slowed down or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, just to talk about a little bit of, I want to about Bunde and Bullerengue. That is from Darien. It's also a dance and a song, a dance that we share with Colombia, the territory, as we were once part of, and part of our history in Panama. We were part of Colombia. We share a territory, but this Afro uh dance is also shared to Afro-Colombians on that side as well. And the bunde specifically will be as a it's like a religious festival that is like with rhythm and singing and joy of the black man and the woman are mixed in Catholic with Catholic religion and belief. And it's specifically the bullerengue that is from the Darien part. It's a dance in which the woman expressed her freedom through her movement of saying of her body that says, "You have enslaved my body, but you have not enslaved my soul." So again, this is specifically because again, the territories in Panama will might have different dances, might have different expressions. I will have different costumes in terms of how they will dress. So I also wanted to, add on a little bit of the territory when we talking about the Afro descendants as well. All of that will be combined. Bunde Bullerengue will also be considered Afro-colonial as well, a dance. In this case, they're gonna roll gastronomy and it will mix we have like the bun and the Afro descending gastronomy in Panama originates from the two currents, the Afro-colonial and the Afro-Antillean cuisine. And it will be, with different seasonings and spices. We have the bun. This is coming specifically from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, from Barbados, from different parts. We have specifically patis and beef patties. This is again the Caribbean fried fish. We call it the one at the bottom. It's like fish cakes as well. We have a specific drink as well. It's called Sorrel that again come from the Caribbean that we will drink as well here in Panama. A lot of people will do it for the holidays. And we have different gastronomy as you want to see in the bottom. It's called wampat. The rice is where you will put different meats and that idea of wampat at the time of slave is was what you had in the house. Everything will go in one pot. So that's why we'll call in that part. And so we have so many gastronomies that will mix with the Afro-colonial and the Afro-Antillean as well that will make that Afro-Panamanian culture and gastronomy as well. And I want to also talk about the different Afro-Panamanian social movements that we have in Panama. All of these organizations have fought for policies, laws, and rights to be implemented and respected, has done so much research to maintain the history and culture and tradition of Afro-Panamanians. So we have all of this this is some of the organizations that we have in Panama that to mention about and to have an idea. And we also, for the promotion of the Afro-Panamanian identity, we have the royal costume. This is specifically in the House of Portobello. This is specifically in the territory of Colon, in the province of Colon, where in the time of the Afro-colonial, again, the Spanish crown, and that time, this was the place where all of the goods were entering. This territory of Colon was very important in time and history for the Spaniards. They were registered and taxed by the Spanish authority. On the ground of where this is right now, they have been renovated and inaugurated as a building with relevant rooms. And one of them narrates the history of Afro descendants in Portobello, Afro-colonial history specifically, and then highlights the influence and the culture and the identity of the region. Another room of this of the Royal House of Costumes will exhibit the heritage of the importance of Colon being an important province in Panama as well, and emphasize in the ritual and festivities of the different expression of the Congo dance that we're able to just see a little bit of the video. So yes. And then we also have the Afro-Antillean Museum that was very important because the Afro-Antillean Museum is specifically located in the city of Panama. This one's dedicated for the rituals, belief, and history of the vertebrate of the Afro-Antilleans, and is a very important church that is now at that time that now it have become a museum that provide information about that Afro-Antillean history. You can have an idea of how they were living, and so these are like, if you ever had a chance to come to Panama, then this will be, you know, places that I definitely recommend visiting to learn a little bit more history about that Afro-colonial history and that Afro-Antillean history that both are part of Afro-Panamanian history. These are some books that I can suggest. There are, again, many books, but these are books that I can suggest that you can read a little bit more about the different histories in Panama. All of these books, if you have access to Amazon or any other type of way to get books, you can get these books. And again, just these ones are just like to start off. Again, there's a lot of books that you can read about the history of Panama in the different ways that I mentioned about. And at the end, so again, I hope that with this presentation, I was able to answer what is an Afro-Panamanian identity. It's a combination of different beliefs, of different policies that were implemented, history, interconnected. I would put myself as an example. I am Afro-colonial from my dad's side. My family from my dad's side comes from we call it the islands of the pearls, where specifically where the pearl fishery. And our part of my father's part of the family is Afro colonial descendant, Spanish that time in history. And from my mom's side, I'm Afro-Antillean. I can actually track back for my great grandmother. She is specifically, they were coming in between, I will say, a little bit before or during the Panama Canal construction for the U.S. That they came here specifically. So I have those two cultures that will make me into that will build in that Afro-Panamanian identity. I have those two waves. We speak Spanish in Panama, so I speak Spanish, but from my mom's side, they speak a form of English Creole. So that's also part of some, not all Panamanians, unless you might have an Afro-Antillean descender. So we'll have maybe that, or have heard that Afro form of English Creole specifically. But I was raised listening to that. That was also part of my culture as well. So just to give you like that idea, and again, I hope that this presentation gave you like an insight and being able to answer like what is an Afro-Panamanian identity. And it is very important for us. For us to know our history. And we are very proud, or I am very proud of being Afro-Panamanian, and representing those two waves. Those two waves in their own history were very important to build where we are right now as well as a country, as well, very much as a country. We have added a lot. So I don't know if at this time anybody have any questions or anything that any questions or so I would be able to answer.
Okay, so maybe
yes.
first of all, thank you for your presentation. And I am really happy that finally you were able to present it. And I will ask just to make sure, is here anybody who has a presentation for today? Okay, I can see. So I think that we can go to the part of discussion. So first of all, I will ask if somebody has a question. If not, I will ask you something. So do we have some questions?
I mean, I do have two questions in fact, but I also want to, give space for other people.
But right now, I think that you are the only one who has a question. But for now,
Okay,
of course. So
yes, for now. So I wanted to ask, because we were told about this division, like to different like Afro-Panamanians that came from se me mezcla, bueno, todo ya, que vinieron durante la época colonial y otros que vinieron ya de Jamaica y de otros, bueno, de otras islas. Y mi pregunta es si todavía bueno, porque tú dijiste que, bueno, sabes cuáles son tus raíces, pero si es así, en todos los casos, si todos los afroperuanos pueden, bueno, conocen sus raíces, y si esta diferencia, bueno, juega un rol importante o no.
I will say that it yes and no. I would say yes. A lot of people will, because if your great grandma is Afro-Antillean, is Afro-Caribbean descendant, you might know, based on how she will maybe will talk, or it will be as told family, like, oh, great grandmother will just, came from. There are a lot of people don't know their grandparents, or so that's why I said the no, depending on like how that history is being passed on. And so Afro-colonial, I mean, you can speak Spanish, fully Spanish, and your grandmother be. That's why I said it's important. Like the laws that were implemented also play a part on what was passed on, specifically for Afro-Antillians, the ones that are coming from the Caribbeans, because there was a law, the one that they were not able to speak English. So that English Creole was looked down, was discriminated. So a lot of our great grandparents, our grandparents, even my parents will be ashamed to speak that form of Afro Creole English. So that will not be passed on, and that's a very important form of the culture, and more so the Creole that was created here in Panama was a really mixture of all of those Caribbean countries that were coming. So that's something that was not passed on because of the laws that were implemented. There was a lot of shame as well. So some grandparents will not, a lot of grandparents or parents will relate to necessarily that Afro-Antillean descent. There's a lot of people that's very proud. There's a lot of people that know the history. There's a lot of people like me that I am always constantly nagging my family and asking questions on where we came from, how we came about to be here. And there's people that unfortunately don't have access to that information, that might not have relationship with your parents or grandparents. So yes and no. Some will know, some will not know. But at the end of the day, we have a month that is in May that celebrates the Afro descendants, Afro in Panama. So it's also an opportunity to remembrance and all of the thought and our celebration of our identity. So one way or another is also like a reminder of that. So I would say, I don't know if that answered your question. So I would say yes or no answer. Some will know, some will not know. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I know it's complicated, yes, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, because people were telling us different things in reality when we were in Panama. And my second question is about religion, because the thing that interests me the most is religion in general. I was studying, this part of Panama when we were there. So I wanted to ask about the religion of Afro-Panamanians, because some people told me that their grandparents practice Santeria, for example, but that it's looked bad. Like people, some people treat with stereotypes and everything. So my question is, but I also know that the Afro-Antillanos that they were like Baptist, I think, right? Or
Yeah,
Protestant.
yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to ask about the religion part of Afro-Panamanians. If you could, like share your experiences or
Yeah, I mean, again, also all goes about. It's a tricky subject, but also all, I would say that also all it goes about originally like the colonization and like what was implemented and what were you also allowed to believe in. Majority because of we were, colonized by the Spanish crown, it would be Catholicism, and so obviously the different religion that were brought to the country. I would say majority of the country is Catholic, Protestant, no Protestant, no Catholic, Christians. But yes, Afro-Antillians were coming with their own belief, Baptists, Protestants, and you will find to this day in like in different communities and part of the country where there's a predominantly Black population of Afro-Antillians coming. Like let's say, for example, in the territory of the city of Panama, specifically it's called Rio Bajo or so, you will find churches that are Baptist Protestants to this day that yes follow that religion, same as in Colón or so, or Bocas del Toro. If I'm the Bocas del Toro will be very Bocas del Toro is very interested, have a history of his own. And you will find you will go specifically on a road that you will find a church, a Christian church, a Baptist church, a Protestant church, in the same road. And so I that still pass on in there, and the elders, a lot of the elders as well that are Afro-Antillians will practice that religion. When it comes to either any type of it having a specific name that escapes me right now, that it will not just be Santeria or I say it's a specific name that comes from the Caribbean.
like
And
Afro-Caribbean beliefs, right?
yes,
Or religions.
Afro-Caribbean belief.
Yeah.
Obviously there's it's because again I would say the colonization, the mentality that have been passed on being judgmental against those beliefs is something that it was not that practice, but it was masked in other stuff, and in other ways, as we'll put like a name of a Catholic saint will have a representation of that. Either if it's again another form of I don't want to I because I don't have the name, I don't want to you know necessarily uh but yeah, so those beliefs there are obviously that, but again, it's unfortunately because of the mentality, because of colonization, and the Catholic and Christian belief, and we have other cultures and other religions as well that have come about, like evangelic and Jehovah's Witnesses, which is great. It's a combination of religion, but all of those other ones that is very interesting, that the ones that Afro descend religious are looked down upon, like those are the ones being judged or that are being shamed of to believe and practice, coming from African descent. Let me be more specific. Those African descendant believe being shame about. Again, something to pay attention to is like that form of why those specific African descents believe are judged, why they are not being able to be freely practiced without that lack of judgment. So yes, they are here, but it's not something that somebody necessarily will voice out because of that shame that will be, given to. But yeah, they are practiced, and a lot of our elders, or somebody will have a grandpa or a grandma that was in that religion or what passed on, and at some point in that family they stop believing in that again, the shame, the guilt, and that religion. But yes, that's here. It's not that it's not. It's not that people have stopped believing it. It's not that people stop practicing, but it's that judge that in our current society have against those other religions that I would say those African descendants religions believe, why is that shame? I guess that's something to question. Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
just interesting. It's interesting to me that like when we look at other countries like Brazil, you can see like I think people talk more about it, and it's for at least I think it's more popular. And when I was asking about it here in Panama, people, didn't mention it a lot. So I'm just thinking, is it because people don't practice it, or is it because they don't want to talk about it, right?
It's a different form also of I would say who was I would not say like who was your colonizers. It's a different I would call it, like, for example, Congo have a lot of there's beliefs there's certain there's religious things also that comes from the names of the different not dances, but of different the dancers or what they mean. There are certain things there as well. So I feel like in Panama specifically, sorry, if you talk about the history of that, I would say that there's certain things that do mix in a way that people found a way to mix things again with Catholicism. And again, and another example will be like, I don't know, in specifically again Colón in Portobelo, they have what they will call the Black Christ, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a
I wanted to ask about it.
yeah,
Like,
so
uh-huh.
that is surrounded around a lot of like not only a Catholic festivity, it gave a lot of meaning in other ways that even the Catholic Church had an issue with, because it was something so within the community and what it represented that the Catholic Church had. So sorry, at some point in history, they had an issue on how people were approaching this, and the significance and what was for the specifically for Portobello, but it also you will see it's a specific this. And October 21st is when is the day of the Cristo Negro de Portobello. People around the country will go and do different things to be able to show their they being grateful for the sorry Cristo Negro Portobello. And through the years, some people have given in a meaning of specific things and stuff like that, but it's a really a beautiful thing to see how the community of Portobello, how different people from the country will come to pray to him, to ask, to give thanks to him. I feel it goes beyond of that Christianity and Christian belief, and so yeah, if we compare it to different parts of the Caribbean in Brazil, as well as we talking about like candomblé and so or what they practice over there. Um, I say also it's on the wave in the history. Brazil being one of the last countries to stop slavery. The amount of enslaved people that were going into Brazil that were bringing those beliefs that develop into other things. The same thing will be with Cuba. Cuba is very particular. You will see that it's really there. The I wanna say Santeria. That's not that I don't think that's the right word, but in Cuba you will see it's really predominant in the communities. It's part of the religion. It's talk about there is a museum that talk about the different deities that have. So I think it's more so about it have to do with colonization. It have to do about the times of colonization. It have to do it have to be about also who was preserving those beliefs as well. So I think it's definitely different in different countries to look about that religion aspect and Afro descendants aspect as well.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. The last question, like, is it's related. Like, I wanted to ask, is there any like because I know that in some parts of the world, in the African diaspora, there is like this movement to go back to the roots, like go back to the beliefs of the ancestors and reject, like Christianity or Islam. So my question is, have you met something like this in Panama or not yet?
I don't know about no, I personally I have not heard about that of like
Mhm.
the rejection of. I mean, I think it's something more so generational that is happening. That it's you're reading more, you having more access to the information, you're questioning things like why we are believing in this, why we have to believe in this, why was this um um how we came about to believing in this. And definitely the movement, I would say more so in the African diaspora of depending on where you are, like trying to go back into um, any country that of Africa, and trying to reconnect more so with where we came from. Yes, I say that that's different parts of the diaspora and countries that of people that will want to do that. And Panama, I mean, it's obviously um, that I think is a dream for a lot of people to be able to go back to 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 specific parts and reconnect. I think is a dream for a lot of people. I think it will be to establish that reconnection. I believe there was I think there was a talk and I think there was a talk in I don't know if it was Ghana that we as like there was a talk in Ghana that they came I think it was last year of doing that exchange. So yes, that's definitely something that people I will not say that the whole Afro population in Panama it's thinking about that. But I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that we would love to obviously to do that and reconnect and learn that history of where we came from. More to like be there, now that we're not learning it through books or so, but reconnect. So yeah, I don't know if that answered that question.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Just now I wanted to, give space to other people because I already asked 3 questions. So maybe someone else have any other question?
Actually, I've seen that Idabel was, let's say, holding her hand somehow.
Yes, I just saw,
So
yeah, you have a comment. Yes.
yeah, so if you want to comment something or join our discussion, so it's the best moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have yes.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, yes.
So first, I wanted to say thank you to Nicole. I think the presentation was awesome. It was like great. It was so put together, and it has like a really good resume. And I also wanted to talk about like, no sé si puedo hablar en español, ¿cierto? Es que yo siento que no hay
Sí, sí.
nadie
Sí.
que hable en inglés. Ok. Quería hablar también sobre el tema de la interseccionalidad y cómo creo que eso en conjunto al, al- a la falta de historia que tenemos sobre nuestra identidad como afropanameños afecta a la mayoría de la población. Creo que muchas personas eh, no saben tan siquiera lo mucho que les afecta temas sociales como la interseccionalidad que existe con los temas de etnia y los temas de clase, como muchas personas al día a día aceptan comentarios, aceptan chistes. Nicole sabe y creo que las otras personas que están aquí, que son panameñas también, como vemos comúnmente las personas que se ven como nosotras en la tele, inclusive si son en puestos políticos, siempre hay algo que comentar acerca de su imagen o no suelen ser personas respetadas. Y si son personas corruptas, en vez de atacar el tema de la corrupción, atacan temas como físicos de la persona. Creo que en recientes años de figuras políticas que, que nos representan y son verdaderamente respetadas, podemos destacar a Walkiria, a la honorable diputada Walkiria Chandler, que la pueden buscar, creo que es una excelente representación y una visionaria en cuanto a temas afropanameños. Creo que me atrevo a decir que es la primera persona, no es la primera mujer negra en posiciones políticas, pero es la primera mujer negra en posiciones políticas que está totalmente identificada con su identidad y que está a favor de elevar pues nuestras voces.
Perdón,
Y
¿podrías repetir el nombre?
Walkiria Chandler,
Gracias.
creo que Nicole lo está escribiendo. Entonces, la verdad, aparte de eso, no sé, creo que tu presentación resumió bastante bien todo el tema de cómo es ser afropanameño. Desconozco de qué región exactamente es Nicole, pero yo soy del interior del país, así que para mí el tema de la identidad es totalmente distinto. Yo recuerdo que la primera vez que fui a Colón, que es una provincia mayoritariamente de población de personas afrodescendientes, me sorprendí demasiado porque yo nunca había visto como que tanta cultura negra así, y estando en Panamá, o sea, estando a unas horas de distancia. Así que la verdad es, es bastante importante, es bastante importante estas clases de conversaciones, inclusive para nosotros como panameños en general, porque de pronto yo me interesé por este tema por temas de identidad propia, pero quien no cree que no le conviene, simplemente no lo va a buscar. Y si no se tiene la conversación, no se encuentra pues el problema. Y no solamente nos pasa a nosotros, sucede también con la población indígena. Hay muchas personas que tienen descendencia de poblaciones indígenas, desconocen de esto, hacen chistes o se apartan de cierta forma y lo vemos como más que todo un problema ajeno porque no me afecta directamente. Entonces, solo quería agregar eso a la conversación.
Gracias por tu comentario. Y bueno, nos da mucho placer que es importante para ustedes este tipo de encuentro y para nosotros también es súper importante, bueno, escuchar sus experiencias y sus opiniones. Y bueno, y gracias por su presentación, por tu presentación, perdón. Pero bueno, todavía tenemos tiempo para algún comentario o, bueno, alguna pregunta. Y porque también, para terminar, me gustaría como, bueno, volver bueno, sé que eso fue hace 2 meses, pero también, bueno, tuvimos una presentación sobre identidad panameña como en general y también la presentación que yo hice sobre la identidad polaca. Y bueno, tendría que hacer esta pregunta, ¿qué piensan? Bueno, porque si yo pienso en una comparación entre identidad polaca y identidad panameña, me parece que son como dos mundos totalmente diferentes. O sea, bueno, Panamá con tantas culturas diferentes, con tantas etnias diferentes y con mucho orgullo. Y en Polonia, bueno, como hablé, que somos casi todos, bueno, de la misma etnia, de la misma, como, del mismo todo. Entonces, bueno, si quieren algún comentario o alguna pregunta acerca de esto.
No, yo solo quería, no sé si en inglés o en español, no sé cómo.
¿Y cómo prefieres?
Uh, just based on what Isabel was commenting, and is, I, not exactly what she was saying. I'm providing this information. Not everybody have access to this information. Not everybody have an understanding of where they come from. Not everybody have an understanding of how the politics and the systems of the laws, as the laws that I was explaining, again, the caste system that was in Spanish time, how will that affects you today? You will not have not everybody have a comprehension of why that's a thing that will affect you now, but it does affect you in the politics and how people or culture or people are treating you, because there's a lot of things that have been normalized that are not right. And when we as Afro descendants that are like, I will say, like, our deconstructing ourselves, our relearning our history, because a lot of us, as Isabel was saying, we are relearning our history on our own. It's not something that is taught in school. In school, they are teaching us one thing and we are learning another thing, and things are not adding up. You have these laws that have been implemented Like for example, one thing that you will think that is not a thing is like your hair, having curly hair, having an afro, that being the thing that will stop you from accessing to going to school because it's looked down up. So those are things that we as Afro descendants, like, we have to deal with, but had been normalized in the system because of the laws that were implemented. And a lot of people don't have access to that. Now we're doing the work. Not everybody's, and it's important to know that just not everybody that you will see when you go to Panama and is Afro descendant might have this information that I just gave. A lot of people don't know. And just going about their day, and that's fine. But yes, we doing that, this construction, and relearning our history. At least everything that I have learned now, that I was able to just provide information, and even still, I'm still relearning history in Panama. There's so much history that history that happened with our indigenous community that I didn't learn in school. Now as an adult, I'm learning. So that's something important to come about and to talk about, and to bring. So I just wanted to share that Isabel also mentioned that we have a big also Rastafari community in Panama. They too have their belief, are part of our country, and also face discrimination in one way or another, like not being able to go to a bank or so because of their hair or how they look, or the again access to education. We have had issues with children that are Rastafari that they don't allow them to go to school because they are following this rule that are colonial rules, implemented rules that don't go with a population that is African descended. So yes, just wanted to talk about that. And obviously there's gonna be a big difference. Panama is a melting pot of different cultures and belief, of things that have been imposed, of a lot of different ethnicities. We have our Asian ethnicities as well that came from also different parts of history, different part of Asia, Southeast Asia as well. And through the years, we that's like a lot of cultures and belief that came about. So I think that difference between Polonia and Panama as well. So I think is the the history of colonization for us. Who was our colonizer as well? It's not the same the Spaniard colonizers that we had as the English colonizer that were had in the U.S. or as the Portuguese colonizer that were had in Brazil, or as the English colonizers that were in the Caribbean. So that also have a difference in how there's a lot of similarities, but there's like a lot of like different history and things. You will see it in the music in the US. In the South, they don't have a lot of drums, but we do have a lot of drums in Panama. We have a lot of drums in the Caribbean. Again, the colonizer, all of those things that get interconnected as well in history. I think that's makes it different as well. Fortunately, the colonizations, and obviously different countries, and Poland, you were talking about Poland history as well, that went through different waves of things, wars, and so that one way or another also affected maybe the identity of Poland. So Polonia, so you say yes.
Yeah, and also I was thinking about what you said about the the fact that representation matters so much, and I thought about Francia Marquez from Colombia and her role. I think she also speaks about her roots, and that when she was a child she didn't she wanted to see someone like herself having some important role in the politics, and now she's doing it. So I just thought about her, like to add some comment more. Yes. And does anyone else have any question or comment to add?
Because if not, I think that maybe we can end for today. Our meeting actually in Poland, it's a little bit, let's say, late. right now.
Yes, I
So
think you can see because I'm still
yeah.
in my car, but you can see it's super like dark outside.
But of course, she's not driving. Just
No.
just for the record. Yeah. Okay. So if we don't have any questions or comments or something like this, I think that maybe we can end for today. And well, I think that maybe we should think on our group about some new topic for a new topic for another meeting. And I want to ask our Panamanian friends if this hour on Friday is okay for you. I mean, because we needed to look for some new date for our meetings because well, it was a little bit earlier previous, but is it okay? I mean, you don't have classes or something like this just to, to think about new date. It's okay? This one? You can just, I don't know, maybe hold hand on Zoom or something like this. I do not,
Because I think that the last time we were talking about it, and this is the hour that you guys were like mentioning, it's the best, right? That you have some like a moment to connect, or am I making something up?
Yeah, but I think the representation of people of Panama that we have right now is not like a good one because the majority of us are not right now in college. We are actually like in professional practice or work. So maybe that's something that can be answered like in the group.
Yeah,
Okay,
right. We can discuss it in the group.